Hey there, and welcome to week 2 of the Autonomy project, a PDA homeschooling experiment. Last week, we talked about the big picture, the why behind this whole journey. This week, I'd like to share more about how I will collect data this year. First, let's look at the weekly report. This is where I'll be monitoring how we're doing on the 4 C's: critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication. Each week, I'll fill out this report with my observations and notes about how we're progressing. It's a way for me to track our wins and identify areas we need to grow. Next, we have the 5 Whys meltdown tracker. You know those tough moments, the ones where things are falling apart? This tool is designed to help us get to the root of those meltdowns. By asking why 5 times, we can get information beyond a surface level about asking why 5 times, we can dig deeper than just the surface level behavior. Instead of just reacting, we can understand the underlying cause and find better solutions. So throughout this experiment, I'll be sharing these reports and these trackers with you, offering a transparent look into our daily life. Up next is our weekly diary segment for public school prep, followed by a video diary for the Collins Institute prep. We're still covering last week, so schooling hasn't quite begun yet. We will talk about the setup for each and how I'm feeling about the year. So I've tried to do this so many times and I keep crying my makeup off, so it is what it is. Regarding the first week before school in the public charter school, I really tried this. This was really hard. Just everything happened and we got stuck. I had a really nice plan about how I was going to manage our resources and our time and not be stuck here. And then the car died in a way that I couldn't fix it for almost 6 months, and financially. And nothing went right. And I got really fit and ready for the heat. And then I injured myself really badly on my foot. And I don't heal well, especially in my feet. So it actually took the entire to heal. I am now carrying so much extra weight and fluid and symptoms that I don't normally, that I'm still building up back into fitness about, and also feeling really stuck. And we never got a chance. We were like caged animals. We never got a chance to process the stress of school from last spring. And I really don't want to go back. I don't want to go back. And so in order to make it not feel overwhelming, I wanted to start like a month early. So every week I've been checking to see if the software has loaded the lessons. They haven't. And now it's the week before school is supposed to start. And they loaded the last Friday afternoon. They said, oh, the material is available. But at that point, my daughter's birthday is that weekend. And the whole weekend it was just shot. She had a sort of hard birthday, and I had to be there emotionally for her, and then manage the uncertainty of not knowing when the celebration was because it got moved. It kept getting moved. And so that was really challenging for me and overwhelming because I'm managing a chronic illness and I don't know when I need spoons for, when I need traveling, medication, electrolytes, I don't want to tell her no if she chooses a time during that I'm having a flare for her birthday. And so I just wanted to get ahead of everything by hopping on the software early, and it was not available. In addition, this is something I thanks to you people here and the people that will be watching this in the future, I'm able to sort of ground myself around this for the first time this year. But I have figured out, even though nobody sat me down and said, look, your expectations are unreasonable, this is how we do it. I figured out that no matter how much I asked for it to be put into my son's IEP, or like a note in his case file, that I don't like phone calls and I need emails because of verbal processing differences and social anxiety, honestly, but I say because of verbal processing differences. And I ask year after year after year, and I advocate, and nobody respects that. They do what they do anyway. And so this year I've decided, first of all, I'm already sort of stressed out. I've got something going on over the holiday weekend. And then they decide to, blow up my phone with phone calls and voicemails from new teachers and new case managers that I'm not ready for. And also, I'm not verbal all the time. So I don't ever just answer my phone. And they don't, good ones follow up with an email. And then sort of like I'm able to choose my own adventure. This year, I have not gotten a single phone call that offered me an alternate way to get back to them. And so, and I'm also going to start a little experiment this year. I don't want to ask for, I'm not getting what I need when I ask for accommodations as a disabled parent. So I'm going to channel like my inner asshole and get back to them when I get back to them. And if they mention in a tone being having left messages, instead of saying, every year I have to say this, like normally I get like really upset, like I'm autistic and I don't like this, and I did the verbal processing, and it should be in the notes. It should be in the it should be in the case or whatever. It should be in there that I need that accommodation. And then, when people say like it isn't or whatever, and I say, well, how come, kids have the legal right to accommodation, but disabled parents don't? Like, I'm not advocating anymore. I'm just going to act like I'm busy. I'm going to say, just laugh it off and say, well, if you want me to get back to you promptly, definitely never choose phone or leave me a voicemail. Always follow up with email. That's the best way to get in touch with me. I'm super busy, and that's it. Or something like, I can't take an unscheduled phone call most weekdays. So it'd be great if you could just find a time with me via email. And I prefer Zoom. It just goes a little easier for me. I have a lot to keep track of, and I can then take notes and keep notes, right? I'm going to approach it from a tone of my time is more valuable instead of, hey, I need empathy. And see, I suspect that'll go better. But, I'm frustrated, and I really wanted that extra week to start the school year, at least another week. I started 4 weeks before the school year was scheduled to start looking for materials. I got ahead of all my mom paperwork and signing the agreements for the year and whatnot. And I just kept like anxiously checking for the software to be up, for the lessons to be loaded, so that we could get ahead of some of what the problems are going to be. And also because I can't plan. They always change something, and then it's supposed to be like not a big deal, but I really need to know where I need, just like with my daughter's birthday dinner. This gives me no time whatsoever to plan who, when, and where to apply my spoons, my energy, and my son's spoons. And so I'm already in a place right now where they got to me. I feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been doing this podcast. Maybe I don't know what's best for my son. Why can everybody else do this, but I can't? Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm just too disabled for this. Maybe I'm too uppity and persnickety, and maybe, everyone else seems so nice and they seem to get it, and they've normalized this, like what feels like overwhelming for me. So maybe I should just shut up and make it my problem, right? So this happens every year. And then I try to think about the people out there who might be watching this later, who are also feeling that they have to like eat shit and not express their discomfort. The stuff that, like, my point every year is like, it's not a big deal. I've said even in IP meetings, like, hey, how come I keep getting all these phone calls? Like, what if I were hearing impaired? Are there not like protocols for people with disabilities around hearing? And they were like, oh yeah, but that's different. What? Like, first of all, what? Build it in. I don't know a single educator who wouldn't want to blast off a single email blast to 100 parents and then get them back to them one by one, rather than sit there with a whole phone call. And I think what may be happening from a marketing standpoint is that this is coming down from marketing, where they have to make contact with the family in order to make them feel, because this happens to me a lot on hold too, right? Management makes you in these corporations. They're like, people don't like awkward silences. So make sure that they're constantly small talking. And just like when you go to the doctor's office, there's literally a marketing, an office manager based on marketing research, begging doctors, telling them they have a survey and they have to make eye contact with patients, right? So we are all autistic folks like me are, if you're uncomfortable with eye contact, if you're comfortable with small talk, there are marketing protocols in almost every office setting, public setting in America, that are designed to make other people comfortable and that make you uncomfortable and act as a barrier for you entering that market. So even after I'm aware of this, because I've been through these trainings and I've read about these trainings, so even after I tell someone on the phone, like, hey, I'm autistic, I don't like small talk, they fuck right off, because it isn't important about me. What's important is that there's managers and AI listening to them. And if they have a silence longer than 30 seconds, they could lose their job. I'm lost in these economies of scale, these one-size-fits-all protocols where I'm told that that's supposed to make me feel more valued as I am expressing what I need specifically, and they're speaking over with me, telling me, no, this makes you feel valued as a customer. So I think we're in one of those situations where they're told to make these phone calls, and the first one has to be a phone call to make people feel, because they're an online school and all of their marketing right now and their messaging is about this is just as good as in-person school, and everyone's so warm and outgoing, and it's not like a cold, you never see your teacher thing, right? Some of us would prefer that. So before this gets too long, I want to discuss also something they got to me in my head. I got this email already about, hey, I'll be your son's career teacher. And this was a point of contention last year. I really think it is absolutely toxic, especially when an autistic kid is coming out of a lot of academic and going on to an online school. Like this state of Pennsylvania thing, which I think might be a national mandate. We already have to think about how we're going to be productive for another man, because everything is about employment. So already we're asking them in kindergarten, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? I want education to be a playground so that I can ask them, what do you love? And then as they grow, but already they got them locked into, well, you like pink, so you're going to be an artist. And they're in kindergarten, right? Like I think about how many different personalities I went through and how natural it is to individuate in the teen years. And then when I think about the fact that like neurodivergent kids aren't always on the same socio-developmental scale as the other kids. So this is another microaggression I see, this career development program, especially the way it is worded. Like it is absolutely indoctrinating our children into environments that already I don't think are made for every kid, definitely aren't made for my kid. And now we're using like Myers-Briggs personality tests, which are already bastardizations of Jungian archetypes and personality types that were meant to be snapshots at the time, right? So we're already crystallizing into a semi-permanent personality type, what are supposed to be a deep inward look by a psychonaut, out there examining their personality, saying, why am I like this? What shapes me? What factors in the world are making me express like this? So, like, whatever. I know that's a lecture for another day, but I'm not comfortable with this constant thought. My son already has enough anxiety around showing up for academic things which don't feel interesting to him. Now there's this whole course around how he's got to figure it out quick, because he's got to grow up and be a man and pick a career and start thinking about that in 6th grade, which, maybe some kids are okay with that. Maybe some kids aren't. but the fact that it is mandated for every child in the manner in which it's mandated. And so I just quickly want to read you this email that made me twitch. I don't want him to do this career program. I really like this is the whole career program as it's described is almost like a formula for crystallizing all of the things I don't want crystallized in my son by going to public school, and really is I want him to explore careers in the way that the Collins Institute presents it. So career planning, and this is, again, I don't think it's school specific. I'm not calling out the school that I chose for my son. If I haven't mentioned it yet, I do want you to understand that I believe this is the best public school environment I can have my son in. And I am in no way saying that educators are cognizant of what's happening and anything but, dedicated folks. I think this is baked into the frog in a pot, right? I think nobody questions it. So what we're going to go through is Unit 1. We're just going to discover where I am and where I can go. And it's called Discovering Where I Am and Where I Can Go. And apparently that is going to be defined by your career. That's immediately where you are and where you can go means career planning equals. You're defined by your career. You're defined by your means of production for another man. I hate that. So we're exploring our personal interests. Okay, right? Now here's where Unit 2 is where I get a little twitchy. We've got something called career clusters, so we've got to choose a cluster, it seems. We're going to think about all the clusters. The clusters seem to be creative, health and safety, business and innovation, hands-on and technical. And then we're going to talk about the career cluster for us, because right away we're going to know. Then we're going to make a career portfolio, because already we know what we're going to do and what we're best adapted for, I guess. And then we're going to spend several lessons learning about military careers, which I am not at all comfortable with. And I wonder what that content is going to look like. And then in the last unit in 6th grade, we're talking about Myers-Briggs personality tests. We're talking about the Holland job code. Now we're ready for a career at fucking Walmart, okay? It's like, where are you going to be a cog in a wheel that's bigger than you? Where are you going to fit in and not stand out? And if you're going to stand out, then maybe you could be a creative in a marketing corporation. It's just very much like getting the factory laborer ready. There's no value of any role besides that of production. This is an absolute indoctrination to capitalism. And the scary part, the really scary part, is this is indoctrination into a capitalism that no longer exists, and that not only will set most children up for failure, but will actually actively beat out, wrench out, dampen any instinct our neurodivergent, very entrepreneurial, novelty-oriented children will have that will actually make them successful in this world. We are training them to be slaves, but we're training them to be the slaves of yesteryear who are easily replaceable by AI. We're training them for jobs that are already gone. We're training them on skills that are no longer needed. We are training them on a mindset that is setting them up for failure. And when children like my son present active, curious, and unable to collapse down into the factory role, they're labeled as behavior issues and they're just sort of ignored. This is a crisis. And the real danger is pretending that administration is the crisis and that the norm that we want to return to was safe. So we'll see you with some reflections on how bad it was on week 1. in our online public charter school. And in the next segment, I am going to talk about preparation for our year working with the Collins Institute for the Gifted's online software. So now we want to share a little bit about what Collins Institute might look like and my why, which I think is really important. I don't know if the why is always associated with Simone and Malcolm Collins. So I want to read you what got me so emotionally relieved. There was a great deal of relief when I saw that this was going online and that it was becoming accessible. So from their website, which is just Collins Institute, under their why section, they write, quote, "We must stop retooling a factory designed to create interchangeable cogs and explore building a new factory, a factory optimized to foster individual strengths, independent thought, emotional control, and internal motivation." And ding, 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 of course, the PDA in me, internal motivation is what it's all about. And every time I came to the public school system, as someone who thinks about the why of things, it was really easy to see how I was showing up at the table talking about my son's unique needs and modifying materials for him. And everything went through sort of a hierarchy of corporate control, right? And it feels a lot like I had to defer to the expertise of somebody who didn't share my views on autism and wasn't nearly as much of an expert. It felt a lot like when your world-class neurologist has to get past a 22-year-old phone worker at your insurance company to get you the care that you deserve. And what ends up happening is that even with the material would be fine for me. I would love it. I would love the material. And I would be filled with dopamine and ding, ding, ding. I'd be getting gold stars. But my son didn't like the material in public school, and it became very frustrating for him. So at this point, I would go into all the lessons and sort of extrapolate all of the actual problems that they needed solved or the data they were looking for out of him without all of the monotonous, steps that he doesn't find effective or fun in any way. And I would put that into real world examples. And, we have PDAers, right? So I'd have to hide the school. Like one of the baking or off hiking or something. And then I'd push a little too far and be like, yeah, so what would half of that be? Right? And then you just are you doing school at me? Are you doing school at me again? So at this point, I'm literally conning him into doing school. And then I'm taking his answers and I'm noting them down or I'm videotaping them. And then at the end of the night, I am scribing for him all of the answers into school. So really, for several years, I've been outschooling anyway, right? And I've been just really frustrated with it. And my health is getting worse. And as I get better at learning my internal signals and prioritizing my health and, learning when to spend my holistic load and when to pull back, I'm realizing much of the busy work that is sending him into distress is also minding an inane, and it's just requiring so much more of my energy than it's not worth any of my energy. And at this point, I have deteriorating health over essentially, insurance company middlemen, right? This is what we're bound to do, and the quality. I want parents to know that AI is already writing the trade books that these children are getting every year. It's not like when you went to high school. I actually didn't go to public school, but I do remember that, the children who were at least going to Central and other magnet schools here in Philadelphia public school system were reading the same books and doing roughly the same subjects as I was. We were reading the classics in high school. This is no longer the case. Now it's all about who golfs with who and what slop is really being thrown out every year so that they can have a new thing to copyright. We've really lost the point of education. And the one thing I was aware of as I increasingly became more familiar with the public school system is that many of the traits that made me a wunderkind in the Baldwin School for Girls in Bryn Mawr, Pennsylvania, are what makes my son a behavioral problem in public school system. And again, to have the most anarchistic decolonization, anti-imperialist system possible be presented to me by venture capitalists themselves. I had to wrap my head around the juxtaposition of that. And I really, the juxtaposition of that against what most people think they're fighting for right now is one of the most heartbreaking things I ponder at night. Even those of us who think they are on the good side are repeating propaganda that many of us learned in imperialist public school systems. And we don't see it as propaganda because that's how propaganda works. But I think we have to look at models like this. We have to look for the helpers, right? Mr. Rogers told us to look for the helpers, and sometimes the helpers aren't going to be where we expect them to be. And sometimes the people that are supposed to help us don't have our best interest in mind. And it's not because they don't love us, it's because they don't know any better. And I think we have a lot of that going on right now. And I don't really think we can point to any one person that has our best interest in mind. So PDAers, we already have this great, big, beautiful internal locus of control. And mine pointed me towards the Collins Institute. One of the other selling points for me versus outschooling without a system is Malcolm Collins himself. My son loves video games, and a lot of what he doesn't enjoy engaging with is, again, just contract based. The system sucks. He's already bought in. He's already sat down. He's already agreed to the scope of one lesson. We've talked about how many questions there are. We've talked about how many are multiple choice, how many are recorded, whatever. I've done the recon on the lesson. The boy and I have spoken. He sat down to finally do the work. The work is now beyond the scope of what he wants to do because it's buggy. Or he finally types out the thing and he presses enter, and instead of continuing, it wipes, and now he has to do it again. They also started doing this thing, I think because bureaucracy, law, instead of giving the kiddos options, like you can write it, you can make a video, or you can do an audio response. There were some that were just audio or just video responses. And a lot of the times we get through material by my son indirectly telling me the answer. So it's too much of a demand for him to say A, B, or C, or George Washington crossed the river, or whatever. So he might say, fucking George Washington fucking fucked up that fucking river. And like, that is the way he gets it out. And now he can't say that to his teacher in the recording. Or a lot of times it's like so frustrating for him, he'll go nonverbal. And like, if I'm looking for like one of the answers, I'll just say them over and over, and he'll be like a horse. I'll be like, does that mean answer B? And he'll be like, right. And then like, sometimes we'll get through the rest of the multiple choice like that. We'll be like, and that means answer C, right? You know what I mean? Like we have a back and forth like that. And now they've taken away another barrier to entry because now they're doing this weird thing where they need him to perform. And sometimes he doesn't even want to perform for me. And sometimes if he does perform for me, it's got to be, the F word. Or sometimes I've completely outschooled the material because he told me that the guy in the book looks like an asshole or whatever. He doesn't give a fuck about him. And so I sort of retooled the material, and it's not in the exact verbiage. The answer isn't in the exact verbiage, but I know the concept's getting taught, right? And then I kind of scribe it back into what the school wants to make the software work for him. So they've removed my ability to help him, help me, help him. And then after all that, talking about all that, they tell me, well, it's okay because now he has a case manager to do all that work. And he doesn't. He hates the case manager so much. She's not getting meaningful work done with her. And I will drive home a concept, outschooling it several times to make sure he gets it. As long as he gets an answer once and demonstrates knowledge once in the moment with this lady in the 20 minutes a week they meet, then it's easy peasy. He's fine. And they're just pushing him ahead. He's not learning anything except for that he doesn't like learning. And then he's getting all these, messages about his self-esteem. And that it brings me back to how come when I acted precarious like this, I was given an IQ test and a label and private schooling, and he was given an IEP and 20 minutes of someone's time so they can check off a box. They're not serving anyone here. So I like what I see. I'm really excited in what I saw on their website. And they talk about looking at unschooling and if it's sufficient. And, I agree with everything that they presented here on this page. My opinion of outschooling is it's not rigid enough. We've got a lot of people just teaching, various versions of the Bible versus people like me who would probably do a much more thorough job with the material if we were outschooling. So I like the idea of outschooling, but it's also not fair, right? It's not a solution. It's not a system. It's not something we can point at and say, look, there's a better way. I don't see this kind of real support for independent thought coming out of any political system. I'm seeing more thought being put into this system and into systems like this than into the public school that we're fighting for. And so I'm really interested to see if my son will engage, because right now we're at a point where he won't engage with the software. He wanted more independence, and then when he was given more independence, it came with constant meltdowns. So I'm really interested to see if he, given no constrictions on what he can learn, given software designed by a gamer, can bring a little bit of enjoyment in something other than hanging out, getting in trouble, playing video games, all the stuff. It's just interesting. His first encounter with public school was very by the book, and he was judged by his behavior. His first encounter with public school was in South Jersey when we were living there with his dad for 1 year, and the culture was very different. And my daughter, her first contact with public school was in an extremely artistic, wealthy, high-performing school in the South Street area, Society Hill. And night and day, my daughter is very academic like myself. She's a high achiever. She's in a magnet school currently. She's very independent. She made lifelong friends. Her friends are also very intelligent and very competitive and looking at competitive schools. And so the nature versus the nurture of things. My son believes things about himself that are simply not true because of the company that he kept, because of the way his traits were presented as deficits and not something that makes him creative, precarious, worth investing time in. So yeah, there's socioeconomic issues, there's cultural issues, there's gender issues, and there's just the fact that this is my last I'm watching him waste the same sort of like intellect and systems thinking that I have. And for what? I love him, and it's not fair. That's done to him, and that doesn't sit well with me. And so I really look forward to this year. I am in the restaurant industry. I spoke many times over email with Simone, who was absolutely lovely. I talked to Malcolm in February. Briefly, I told him my plans on using a small entrepreneurial endeavor to teach him real world skills. Most of my questions for Malcolm had centered around something, what we're doing right here. How does this work? Is this a full-time program? Is this a part-time program? And then I found out from him, it really is just, in the alpha stages and being built as we go. And so it lends itself perfectly to this sort of experiment. We're curious in all ways. And so I'll keep track of the learning we're doing outside of school within the Collins system. And then there's another leg of the experiment is, giving him autonomy within the Collins system, seeing if I'm able to get him to a point by, a certain point, the end of the year, the middle of the year, even the beginning, where he is logging in and doing some hours and exploring the Collins system on his own, and he doesn't need help, and he's not getting so frustrated with the system being laggy or boring or built for babies that he throws his computer across the room. That will be the real. I think I'll probably cry a lot this year, but if that ever happened, I would just be like, oh, because right now he doesn't want to do like everything. It's not a matter of capability. He doesn't want to do anything school related. He starts getting violent. He starts breaking things. There's nothing good there. There's no reward. There's nothing but frustration. So we'll find out. Next week, we will get into the nuts and bolts of using the systems for the first week. We'll get into how interacting with both systems went for my son each week. And we'll have our first reports from the full week of education on each system. So you and I can see how well our data collection system works. Thanks for joining us on episode 2. I'll be sharing my insights from our trackers with you next week. So don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our learning. See you next time.